If you're going to talk about the intersection between restrictive gender norms and climate obstruction in the year of our Lord 2025, you have to also look at the crossover between anti-trans groups and anti-climate groups. Because, folks, that Venn diagram is a circle. Welcome back to Carbon Bros, a collaboration between Drilled and Non-Toxic. I'm Amy Westervelt.
I'm Daniel Penny.
Today, we're bringing you a conversation with Vivian Taylor, one of the key researchers behind a story you might have seen earlier this year in Atmos and Heated about the fossil billionaires funding anti-trans campaigns. Vivian has been working on both trans rights and climate issues for a very long time, so we figured she was the perfect person to talk to about all of it.
While Amy and I finish up episode 4 of Carbon Bros, we'd like to present this bonus episode, which, as Amy said, I think really gets at another side of the overlap between masculinity and the climate crisis. It's a great conversation with Vivian Taylor, and it's one I think non-toxic audiences will very much enjoy. All right, here we go.
So, hi, my name is Vivian Taylor. I am a climate policy and environmental health policy expert. I am a former researcher who worked at the climate think tank Climate Nexus before it went away in 2024. I am also a longtime transgender rights activist. I have, in various ways, been working on trans rights issues since I got out of the Army in 2010. From 2013 to 2015, I was the executive director of the Episcopal Church's International LGBT Rights Ministry. I also have been working in North Carolina against discrimination focused on transgender people, and specifically working against the promotion of laws to criminalize homosexuality and transgender stuff. While I was the executive director of the Episcopal Church's International LGBT Ministry, this was back in 2014 when Uganda passed an anti-homosexuality law lobbied heavily by white American Christians. So I did a lot of work with people in Uganda there, pushing back against the criminalization of homosexuality in that country, which led to just terrible suffering. A lot of people were killed, a lot of sexual violence, a lot of people imprisoned for no reason. Terrible, terrible stuff. And so, since then, I have had, even in my environmental work, a very strong focus on trying to understand the criminalization of homosexuality and the criminalization of transgender people and how that ties into all of this. So, in my climate work, I've also always done environmental health work. I cannot tell you how much I believe that people should have access to clean drinking water, that if they don't have clean drinking water, it's going to hurt and kill them, especially poor people, especially kids, especially people with disabilities and illnesses. Like, look, we just got to get people clean water. I don't care what God you believe in or don't believe in, what moral code you have, what wonderful, exciting philosophy you have. One way or another, we got to give people clean water tonight. Just got it. So I've worked on this a lot. In 2021, I came to work at the think tank Climate Nexus, and I was working on our climate finance team and also our climate and health team. And there's a huge amount of crossover because climate change is just extraordinarily expensive. Not just that it destroys our infrastructure, which it does, but also, like, hotter weather is dangerous. Wetter weather spreads more disease. So I did a lot of research on how this was being communicated about. And starting in 2021, I was working every day on a climate finance newsletter that was going out to a couple thousand reporters and policymakers and so on, just following all this. And every day I would have to go through and collate and write up summaries. And one of the things I noticed very quickly was that this anti-woke narrative that was specifically focused on fear mongering around transgender people. This is all getting used to hammer the idea that we should invest in solar and we should add batteries to the electrical grid to make it more reliable and more efficient. The thing is, it is hard to make direct argument that we should ignore climate change and just keep pumping money into fossil fuels forever.
Right.
It is getting hotter every single year. We are having high tide flooding in places that we have never had high tide flooding before. And it's happening regularly because the sea levels are already rising. It's not an emperor's new clothes thing. We're all wearing the emperor's new clothes when it comes to climate change.
Right.
And kind of the only way you can get people to do that is if you keep them distracted. And so, with all of this really intense anti-trans rhetoric, and specifically rhetoric around criminalizing trans people and beginning to really push back on gay people's right to marry, gay people's right to have jobs like teachers or other roles that come with a high level of trust and responsibility, I begin to wonder, is this just something I'm noticing? Is this the blue car rule? You get a blue car, you see blue cars everywhere. Am I just a gay person? And so I see anti-gay stuff everywhere. So we started looking into it. And so what we did was we just identified 40 of the most prominent groups that have been leading the charge on anti-transgender rhetoric and activism and pushing anti-trans laws that are leading into anti-homosexuality laws. And what we found is there was a huge amount of funding from the fossil fuel industry. 80% of these groups were receiving fossil fuel industry money.
Wow.
What we have seen is the fossil fuel industry trying to protect itself from, people being upset with there being more flooding, more extreme weather, more heat waves. The fossil fuel industry doesn't want to deal with people upset about that stuff. So instead, the fossil fuel industry has been funding this massive societal upset about transgender people. And that has hurt everybody.
It's interesting because I feel like there was this moment where people started really freaking out about Project 2025. And for a lot of people, it was the first time they heard of the Heritage Foundation and all that, right? So there was this whole focus on Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and whatever. We did this jumbo spreadsheet of all the different organizations involved and where their funding was coming from, what other issues they advocated for, and who worked for them and where else those people worked and all that stuff. And there too, it was just very clear that it's a lot of the same funders that are funding anti-climate stuff are funding anti-trans work. And a lot of the organizations are working on both those issues. And a lot of the organizations that had been anti-abortion organizations almost exclusively for a long time, you could totally see they kind of won their battle, right? And they've built up all this infrastructure and have all this funding coming in, and they're not just going to dismantle that. And a lot of them had just pivoted to anti-trans and anti-climate. It was those two things were seen as this the next battlefront or whatever. It's very disturbing.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think one of the good things to remember is what if it's just trans people fighting the fossil fuel industry, the hard reality is that trans people are probably just going to lose. But if we all come together to work for a world where we both have a survivable environment and a lack of bigotry towards all minority groups, if we all come together, we can get that. We have the ability to just choose a world. And look, we all know that we have to choose a world. There's room for everybody. Like, look, I'm not trying to push my religion. I have a master's of divinity too.
Mm-hmm.
Look, 2,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, St. Paul, in the earliest Christian text that we still have a copy of, written, the book of Galatians, said, in Jesus Christ, there is no Jew or Greek, slave or free, no male or female. 2,000 years ago,
Wow.
at the foundation of the religion that so many people today still believe in, we were saying, well, we got to do something where rich or poor, no matter your your ethnicity, your race, whatever, no matter your gender,
Yeah.
we're all people. We're all in this together. We're all in the image of like God, And I don't mean to get religious, but I'm just saying, we have thousands of years of being like, no, the most important thing is you take care of the poor, you take care of the sick. When there are people who've been imprisoned, you have to think about their needs and be good to them, even if they've done something you don't like. We gotta, not have racism and sexism and classism. We just gotta work together and, not hurt poor sick people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have the answers. And much like we have the answers to do something meaningful about climate change that will result in a high quality outcome for every human being on the planet. We have the ability, and we can't let these wealthy fossil fuel companies use their billions of dollars to split us up and turn us against one another and keep us all in a place where we're being hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I find that every time I look at this, I'm kind of shocked at the fact that really a lot of these right-wing organizations in their way are more intersectional than climate organizations. Like they're working on anti-climate, anti-trans, anti-women, anti-reproductive rights, anti-everything all at once, right? You've worked in climate spaces for a long time. Why is it so hard for climate organizations to wrap their head around that? Because I don't think actually if it's just the people who care about climate change, you win that either.
I mean, I think people are scared. I think that there's a really intense campaign right now to say, hey, you should not be talking about climate change. You should not admit that climate change is real. You should not be trying to do anything about climate change.
Yeah.
And when people are under that much pushback, I think people get scared that, if we talk about racism, we talk about sexism, if we talk about homophobia, well, that's going to be a step too far. Then no one's going to listen to the climate stuff. And then, we just need to.
Yeah.
Why can't we just talk about microgrids
and batteries?
Exactly. And it's like, well, because we don't talk about everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, we're talking about the environment of the planet. And to talk about the environment of the planet, you have to deal with the people who live on the planet. We're animals too in this little ecosystem.
Yeah. Sounds so simple, and yet, yeah.
And I get it too. What? Trying to have a consistent positional justice is very hard. There's things going on in the world where there are moral positions where if you take them, there's a chance that you will lose your job. You will not be able to get another job immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are going to be bad trouble if you act like a basically moral person.
Mhm.
But, life's short. And you can say, well, life's short. I better take care of myself now. Or you can say, well, life's short. I may as well just pay the price and try to move the world forward to a better place.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's easy for me to say. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think we gotta just keep working. We gotta keep remembering what the consequences of this stuff are. When I was in the Army, I had a number of buddies who were firefighters. It was an aviation unit. And so we had to have our own firefighting squad. And I got to know a number of these guys. I got to hear a fair amount about firefighting. And let me tell you, I have never met a firefighter who's I don't care about poor families in apartment buildings. When I hear an apartment building is on fire, I just don't care about those people in there. There's a kid hiding in the closet because she's too afraid of the fire. And if she isn't found in the next 45 seconds, she's going to roast like a chicken. No, that's not how firefighters are. They are so focused on those people. They're so focused on those families. They're so focused on well, no, you have to spray the water like this, because if you spray the water like that, it'll totally destroy the house. But if you spray it like this, then they can rebuild, and you have to say, you got to think about not just the family right now, but the family's economic outcomes over the next 10 years. When I hear a man talk about protecting a family's economic outcomes over the next 10 years, I tend to think, well, whatever this man's religion is, whatever his politics are, these guys seem to be on track for what I'm looking for out of a firefighter. And I think that's kind of what we're doing when we're thinking about environmental health.
Mhm.
Look, I love batteries. But guess what? If you just talk about the technology, you just sound like a cell phone ad. And if you can just focus on the effects on people, I think that's where the difference comes. We gotta love one another. We gotta stop attacking minority groups. And we move in a direction that protects the health and happiness of all people. We're gonna be okay.
Carbon Bros is an original series from Drilled and Non-Toxic, written by me, Amy Westervelt.
And by me, Daniel Penny.
Our senior producer and sound designer is Martin Zaltz-Ostwick. He also composed our theme song.
Check his stuff out.
Our engineer is Peter Duff. Fact-checking by Shilpa Jindia.
Original artwork by Matthew Fleming.
Our First Amendment attorney is James Wheaton with the First Amendment Project. Marketing by Maggie Taylor. Check out the Non-Toxic podcast for more on the manosphere, and go to drilled.media for more climate reporting and to support our work.
And of course, you can subscribe to Non-Toxic at nontoxicpodcast.substack.com. Carbon Bros episode 4 will be out next week, so stay tuned.